this and realise the shot, and then she just goes real quick to the goal, and it's already in the net.
Yeah, even the coaches are doing the last start. Yeah, I had a chat to my boss and I can send you the audio if you're interested in it. I'll transcribe some of it and put it as a post on the Spotify. Just a few points here and there. So Kai ended up meeting Honda. They went to one of the training sessions. Zoki knows Muscat quite well. Yeah. He was taking credit last night for Camp Sober going to Victoria. He said that Kevin didn't know who he was. I told him Phil looked his guys the best from outside the area. Mistakes in Del making that probably wouldn't get punished in Del 2 at this level. I mean, Sakaya, I only realised that when watching the footage of the highlights. Goal, and he assisted all three others.
Gazi! Hook us up, put it up.
I reckon he got this pretty close. So it's a and this is live on
I don't know what page it is. What page did it end up being on?
NPL Vic Facebook.
I just realised how we're going to get the... Yeah. Hello everybody and welcome to Dackland Stadium here, or affectionately known across NPL media as the Thunderdome, as Dandenong Thunder start their NPL season against Hume City. This is the last game of round one. It's been an exciting round one so far, as both teams are now making their way out to the centre circle. My name is Chris Gleeson. We're joined on this NPL Victoria live stream with Demir Koulas. Welcome, Demir.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
As both sides now facing us, it is Hume City in white, Danny Thunder in the black, predominantly black with the red front. And as both sides are out, we can quickly go through the starting lineups, and both sides are managed by former club champions, and it's Veton Kikari's side that's got Pierce Clark in goal, Christian Carvalho, Blake Carpenter, Mersim Mehdi, Jake Kashiri, Alan Blumgart, Ionis George-Poulos, Sevdem Ismaili, Peter Skapitis, Mohammed Fizi, and Brandon Barnes, with Luke Gallo, Arjun Mehmedi, Jack Musgrave, Kane Runji, and Omar Amanchi on the bench. For Hume City, it's Michael Weir in goal with Gideon Sweet, Paul Wilson, Urson Kaya, and Will Hendon at the back. In midfield, Ben Bowler, Harry Monaghan, Danny Dixon, James Brown, Stephen Hewitt, and Mitch Cooper. And on the bench, it's James Kubaranski with Brad Blumenthal, Matthew Lazaridis, Theo Mark Callis, and Hayden Tennant. So they're the starting lineups for both sides. Plenty of new names in both lineups, Demir.
Yes, most certainly. Obviously, Dandenong Thunder did quite well last year to stay up after quite a difficult start to the campaign. Hume City, really after doing so well in the early years of the NPL, have sort of dropped back in the last 2 years, regressed to the mean with finishes outside the finals berth. I think they'll be looking for a much improved season. Don't want to be anywhere near the relegation zone. Same thing for Thunder, who would probably be looking at a finals berth themselves, particularly after some extensive off-season recruitment, particularly up front. They look quite dangerous. Obviously, you've got Brandon Barnes in there. We all know what he can do. But Peter Skapitis was a big coup. Kieran Dover, a former player of the club, who had quite a good season for Gully, and we don't say that about too many Gully players last season given their struggles. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what Thunder can produce. They've got a lot of good, young, exciting players, but so do Hume as well. So I think it'll be quite evenly poised, but I'm leaning towards Thunder as the home team, and with Brandon Barnes, you'd imagine in top form, to fire.
Well, Brandon Barnes has been the real star of the NPL in NPL 2, getting the Thunder up here after some really successful seasons. And see how he starts tonight. It's Barnes with the ball in the middle of the centre circle. And we're very close to kicking off the final game of NPL Round 1. And we are away. So it is the Thunder to kick off. And what has to say is a very good pitch out here too, Tamir.
Yes, George Andrews Reserve, as it was formerly known, it was always one of the better pitches in the Victorian State League football. But it wasn't always the case. I remember when the Thunder first got promoted, particularly in the winter months, it really struggled. But the council have done a great job over the last few years to really get it up to scratch, as we see Sevdem Ismaili about to throw the ball into play.
I remember about 10 years ago watching Hume City and Dandenong Thunder. It was just a mud pile, this ground here, so it's in excellent condition as the years go past, as all NPL grounds really are now. The ball's kicked out for a Thunder throw. It's now the ball. It's at the back, a big switching ball. Urson Kaya heads the ball on. The Thunder will be able to pick the ball up. There's Carpenter. Can't control it. Ben Bowler, one of quite a few Brits in this lineup. You've got the Welshman and the Scotsman and the Englishman in midfield for Hume City as they've given the ball up. Kashiri's held on, and it's almost a good chance to be the first yellow card. The referee's just going to give a warning. So let off for Hume City. Thunder want to take it quick. In the midfield, Skapitis with the nutmeg and wins the foul. And this time the yellow card does come out. It's going to be James Brown.
Early yellow card to Brown. A bit surprised, particularly given the referee is Perry Muir, who tends to be one of the more lenient referees. A lot of game management from him, but when a card is there to be given, he certainly gives it, although quite surprising given the timing.
We were trying to work out who would be playing centre-back with Tennant on the bench. Looks like the Scotsman Harry Monaghan has slipped in there with Paul Wilson, so a real new combination for Hume.
He was a mid-season signing last year, wasn't he, for Hume City?
He was, and he was quite a good signing playing that defensive midfield role. Here's a great opportunity for the Thunder. Ball comes in, flicked on, straight at Weir, and Michael Weir collects in the first shot in anger.
They've done quite well to retain the services of Michael Weir, who has been probably one of the best goalkeepers over the last couple of seasons in NPL Victoria. Of course, Queenslander came down here in 2017, won the NPL Goalkeeper of the Year that year, and I imagine there would have been some interest from clubs that perhaps have higher ambitions than Hume, but he certainly stayed true and loyal to the side from ABD Stadium.
Good ball over the top now. Urson Kay is going to be in on goal here. Can Kay lay it back? He tried to, and the ball's cleared out for a corner.
Excellent clearance there from Mersin Mehmedi.
One of the real youngsters in this lineup. One of the few that have been playing for the junior Socceroos, sort of set up outside of professional football. Decided to play with senior football here at Dandenong Thunder, and he had quite a good season last year, and he's started really well there because Hewitt was in on for a tap-in.
Yeah, after a testing start, obviously we know what happened in their first home game last season, and the temptation would have been to drop a young kid like that, but Vargas stuck with him and he's done well.
Wilson goes down at the edge of the box. Referee turns around, the ball's out as the Thunder clear the ball away. So we just got the setting sun coming over here. We are looking in direct sunlight. He's got Skapetis at the edge of the box. If he can find him, he goes and lays it off to him. Here's Skapetis, side foot, and Michael Weir with the second big save of the game.
Well, that's suicidal defending from Hume City. Weir gets him out of trouble there. But to firstly give Brandon Barnes that much space, and then to leave it in a situation where Skapetis is free, heading towards goal. They've got their goalkeeper to thank for not being behind already.
Well, great opportunity at either end. Nick Hegarty right in front of us. Not looking too happy with how they were caught out at the back then. You get the chance to clear here through Sweet with the throw.
You've got Danny Dixon returning to the club, and Danny has actually come back from a spell playing in the Maldives, which we traditionally know as more of a holiday destination rather than a footballing destination. He actually became the first Aussie player to play in the top flight in the Maldives.
This ball switched out wide. I must admit, we are just trying to work out the number 4 in midfield for the Thunder, which it's got a different number on the team sheet. Might be Ionis Georgopoulos.
Yeah, it's Yanis Georgopoulos, and I do stand corrected on the pronunciation of Michael's last name. It's Michael Weir.
And that would have to be his mother sending that through, I'd suspect.
I have been warned, though. So apologies to the Weir family.
Well, he did have his best moment in his first game, scoring a late equaliser against the Melbourne Knights.
And he's one of many, as I've already mentioned, a Queenslander. You also have in Thunder's midfield, Jay Kushikiri, and plenty of more players throughout the league. I mean, that game was also quite well known for Fraser Chalmers getting sent off. He's another Queensland goalkeeper that's in NPL 2 this year with the Moreland Zebras, as Fazy has the ball in to our near side here.
Fazy's ball's cut out. Ball over the top. Who can get there first? It's going to be Kashiri, who's playing centre-back today. Ball deflected. Hume hold on to it with Hewitt. Here's Stephen Hewitt, goes from range, and it's well over the top. Little snapshot there from Hewitt, who did play professionally with Burnley, did get a couple of championship games off the bench many years ago. He's only in his mid-20s. And just like the other recruit, Ben Bowler in midfield, both come from the Welsh Premier League.
Well, of course, Nick Hegarty moved to Hume City in his mid-20s, and he certainly built up quite a legacy, of course, winning the 2016 NPL gold medal, and really being a pillar of consistency at Hume City over the years. Following his move, I think in 2012, he came here with Chris Oldfield, who's also gone from strength to strength. He's obviously now at Avondale, who watched last night against Dandenong City, and man, they look good. Tasuki Sakaya, the new Japanese import, had a standout game, a goal and 3 assists. He's definitely one to watch if you haven't seen or heard much of him. Keep an eye out for him, although he did get
he rose to national prominence with that double against the Melbourne Victory in the FA Cup for RPL Leichhardt last season.
He's been a pretty busy off-season for quite a lot of clubs. Avondale losing, you look at Kane Shepherd and Elvis Camp-Sober have moved their way to the A-League, and they've done such an excellent job in their first half a season up there so far.
And, with the success of Shepherd, Camp-Sober, and also Matt Miller, a former Dandenong Thunder player up in the Central Coast, given that you'd imagine more and more games are going to get televised this year, you're going to have a lot of coaches looking at NPL, particularly NPL Victoria, as a recruitment pathway for a lot of these players. If you want to get a player for next to nothing, a good quality player, well, come to NPL Victoria because there's plenty of talent on show.
We've also seen this, once again, as there is many years, plenty of players coming from interstate. As both sides in this side, with Blake Carpenter and for Hume City, Paul Wilson coming from Adelaide United Youth in the NPL South Australia, making their way over to Victoria as Cooper is fouled. Georgopoulos is going to get away. No foul there, so James Brown is the only one in the yellow card in the book so far as we've played 9 minutes.
And I think Hewitt was asking that question, Hume perceived the booking of James Brown to be a soft one. No surprises that they're asking the same questions for any foul that Dandenong Thunder does commit, as we see Hewitt preparing to take this free kick. He takes a quick one, combines here with Gideon Sweet.
Good ball to the back post. What a header what a save by Clark. It was Ben Bauer. It was going to drop in, but Pierce Clark went back and was able to reach up and tip it over his bar.
Yeah, Clark's another interstate signing. Obviously, he's been on the periphery of a number of NPL teams over the last few years. He was a second choice at Heidelberg in 2016, commenced last season as second choice at Bentley, had a stint with the Newcastle Jets youth team, so he's definitely a talent to keep an eye out for.
Another set piece for Hume, back post, Cooper! And it's Mitch Cooper who gets the first goal for Hume City, unmarked at the back post, and he was able to head in from a close range. Clark really with not much choice, as there's got to be an inquisition at the back there for the Thunder to allow Mitch Cooper to jump unopposed at the back post.
Yes, and Mitch Cooper, who of course did struggle in front of goal last season for Green Gully, gets 2019 off to a fantastic start there with the header. Thunder, there'll be a lot of question marks raised at the man marking at the back post, because you certainly don't want to let an opposition player with a free header there, but Cooper did well to find a space and kick starts his 2019 with a bang.
Well, I did speak to manager Nick Hegarty before the game, and he was very bullish about his side's chances. To be honest, I've never seen him that relaxed and that jovial before a game, Nick Hegarty. And Hume City, after a couple of scary moments at the back where they've left themselves a little bit short, they have put the Thunder on a bit of pressure as the ball's over the top now. Ismaili. Ball stuck in the corner. And now Feasy crosses it in, headed away by Dixon, back post, trying to get there. Is Carpenter, and Hume deal with it and get it out for a corner. We do apologise that it gets a bit tight around that corner. We are filming in the members areas here with the sponsors, and just this positioning doesn't allow us to get tight in that corner. So we'll still describe the play for you, just pretend you're on radio just when it's a corner at that post. Chance for the Dandenong Thunder. Near post, bounces. Hume don't get it completely clear. Mehmeti. As they try to get it back into the box. And here's a chance for the Thunder. Crosses it in low. Hume with the numbers. Here's a chance, as it was Omos Skapitis taken off him, and now a curling shot. Hume blocking all these shots so far. Monaghan gets it clear. Chance for Brown to slow things down. He hasn't got much support, but he wins a foul. And he sat on his backside, Brown, but Hume City get out of trouble.
Yes, and how important does that Michael Weir save seem now, given the fact that, that they were odds on to go behind before Weir pulled off that fantastic save to deny Peter Skapitis. And despite Pierce Clark's efforts to deny Bowler. I guess from the next corner you saw Mitch Cooper find enough time and space to head the ball home.
Bowler over the top, headed away from KO, who's in a more advanced wide roll, a bit advanced up the pitch on that right wing. Hume now. Hold on to the ball. Hendon inside. Here's a chance for Cooper for two. Flag stays down. Mitch Cooper's got two. And Hume City are in dreamland here at the Thunderdome.
Fantastic start for Hume City. Dream start here at Dackland Stadium. And it was a fantastic ball to Hendon for Cooper, who beat the offside trap. It wasn't the tidiest of finishes, but it was effective. It found its way to the back of the net. And Hume City are in dreamland here.
They've only played 14 minutes away from home to score 2 goals. Mitch Cooper took his chances very well. But once again, just at the defence at the back, it is a bit of a shuffled defence. As we've known, the Thunder have had some serious ACL injuries, a few of them to defenders as well.
Yeah, well, they've lost Brian Brown, a former Hume City player, Brendan Elmazovsky, influential skipper, who basically went through a number of seasons without missing a game, and it's just a shame that such a effective player for them has succumbed to an ACL injury. They've also lost a young kid, Sunny Sejai, and also one more player in midfield. I'm struggling to recall who it was, but yeah, you know, it's a tough pre-season for them. It was Josh Bragg, the English import, actually, who has been tremendously effective for them in midfield with his high work rate and energy. Box-to-box midfielder who joined the Thunder in 2017 when they were still in NPL 2.
Well, here's another chance for Hume. Brown, can he find a teammate? Tries to cross it in. He's going to get a corner. Carvello just caught out of position and James Brown made the run over the top.
Well, if you're Dandenong Thunder, I mean, forgive me for saying this, but look, your mind springs back to their first home game last season where they fell behind quite early, and from there onwards it was all downhill with that 9-0 loss horror show, which they did quite well to recover from, but it hasn't been a great start to their first home game this year as well.
It's Hume City with this corner. The last one they had, Mitch Cooper, got a free header. Can the Thunder defend this a bit better? Brown near post, it's off the crossbar and it's out. It's going to be a goal kick. What a great opportunity there for Hume City. Looked like Paul Wilson with the little flick, and it was off the crossbar. Had a strong hand from Pierce.
Yeah, Thunder at 6s and 7s there at the back, and if it wasn't for Pierce Clark, they would probably be even further behind.
So now we got Pierce Clark. Long from him out wide. Here's Carpenter. Flicks the header. And Wilson. These two were playing with each other last year at Adelaide United Youth. Ball in the midfield. Needs to be won. Cooper slides in. But the ball's going to be found. And taken away is going to be Blumgart. Ismaili will play the ball back. Kasheri. As the Thunder look to switch to the left-hand side. Mehmeti. Now Christian Carvello. Plays it in short, wanting to find Carpenter. He's very tricky, Blake Carpenter. So there's one thing that really attracted Vedin Kikaris to bring in that left-sided attacker who's got a bit of flair to take on the fullbacks.
And of course Carpenter was brought to the club by Huskin Derovic, who of course worked with him at the Adelaide United youth team back in 2016-17. So another one of those Adelaide boys that's been brought over here. You mentioned Wilson, of course, Matt Crooks, who had a sensational debut last night for Bentley Greens as well, came from the same Adelaide United youth team. So as well as having a lot of players from Queensland coming here, you do have quite a few South Australians calling NPL Victoria home.
Well, Thunder nearly put themselves in a dangerous position, but now they go over the top. Michael Weir's got a chance to chest the ball and slow things down. We really had a couple of real good opportunities early, did the Thunder. Now Danny Dixon turns it over. Blumgart to Barnes. Barnes looking to turn in midfield. Gets on that left foot, goes from range. It wasn't too far away, but Michael Weir watches it go over his bar.
Yeah, Hume City would be wise not to give Brandon Barnes not a lot of space, because when you do give him space, time and opportunity, he will definitely punish you, as we have seen over the last 3 seasons of Victorian football. Doesn't matter whether it's NPL or NPL2, he's definitely one of the most lethal frontmen around outside the A-League.
We also look at Hume City. Danny Dixon playing at centre-back with Paul Wilson. They're pretty thin in the squad in that area.
Yeah, they certainly are, which, if you were going into this game, despite Funder's ACL injuries, if you were to ask me which team is going to struggle defensively, I would have said Hume City, given that they are playing not only against Brandon Barnes, but also a quality new signing in Peter Skapetis. But it's been the other way around in these opening 20 or so minutes.
And once again, you just got to bear with us when those really tight corners. So it will be a goal kick.
Don't forget, we are live and interactive, of course, on the NPL Victoria Facebook page. So keep the comments coming in. Make sure to keep them PG rated, though. But definitely a good initiative from Football Victoria to have this game live for you. Hopefully we'll see more and more to come across the season. Of course, Queensland has done quite well having a streaming deal in place, as well as have a number of states. So hopefully Victoria isn't too far away in that capacity, as Dixon launches the ball long to Kaya.
Kaya's he's done well to keep the ball in. Hewitt couldn't reel that one in. Now here's Skapetis. He can switch play out wide, but it's going to be Hendon to get there first in front of Carpenter. Now Hume looked to counter. Ball's played out wide to Brown. Once again is with the youngster Carvello. He's been on the fringes of a couple of A-League sides, Melbourne Victory and Melbourne City.
Yeah, he actually made one A-League appearance for Melbourne City a couple of seasons back. Of course, his younger brother Josh is also currently a part of Melbourne City Youth.
Ismaili plays the ball back. Kasheri clears it. Barnes was in an offside position, so he'll let that one go. Back to Weir. Hume will build up from the back. Danny Dixon.
Now we do have a comment coming through from Bo Johnson, who says, let's hope they continue with some more games over the season. Great ideas for those that cannot make it. And I thoroughly agree with that sentiment. And, we mentioned before that there'd be a larger spotlight on NPL, given the fact that the likes of Cam Sober, Miller, Shepherd have had success in the A-League this past season, but also with the movement for a second division in full force, you've got to also say that a rise in professionalism in the NPL is only a good thing.
It's an excellent crossfield ball from Hewitt. Hendon with the nutmeg. Can he cut the ball back? It's fired across, and Urson Kaya took it over the top, but the ball went out for a goal kick to sort of save Kaya's blushes there.
Yeah, Urson Kaya would be quite relieved with himself that did actually end up being an offside, because had it not, it would have been one of the misses of the season, and we are only, 7 games in?
That's the one thing with the live streams too. You can see the comments. And I'm sure there'll be a few comments of, my grandmother could have scored that or something along those lines. Hume City close to a third, but it's going to be a goal kick to Pierce Clark. The Thunder have started to settle a little bit more into this game after conceding 2 goals in quick succession.
Yes, although Hendon could have really hurt them there. As we see in scenes, I guess, similar to what we saw at midweek in Old Trafford with a player going into the fencing there. Hume City player, not sure who it is at the moment.
It's Will Hendon on the far side, just a challenge between him and Barnes. Barnes, a very solid player. Will Hendon's a little bit more slight. And he definitely come off second best, and I'll tell you what, they're just... it's a really solid fence behind that sponsorship, the Cameron sponsorship on the far side.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you do get with NPL football, is that the fans are so close to the action, which is, I think, can only be a good thing. We see sometimes the A-League struggle in terms of generating that atmosphere, because for a number of those stadiums, because they are also multi-purpose with rugby being played on them, it can be, I guess, quite difficult to generate that really fierce atmosphere that can make it quite difficult for a visiting team. But here in the NPL, you definitely won't see a lot of that.
Must admit, it's a pretty solid crowd here at the newly named Dackland Stadium.
And we do have Danny Ashrak coming into the comments and saying that his grandma could have scored that indeed. So I guess your prediction proved true, Chris.
Well, there we go. Just prompt them and they'll listen. Ball in the midfield. Carpenter trying to drive it. It's going to be Kasheri. Fires it out wide. Ball with Skapitas. Switches it out wide. Here's Marley. In towards Barnes. Hume City sitting quite deep at the moment, but ball is turned over. Now Hewitt plays it into the path of Brown. Easily cut out by Kasheri. Cooper will give it back to Brown. Can he go first time to Kaya? He decides to cross it now, and Mehmeti does well to get it out for a throw.
I think Brown, in hindsight, might be regretting not going first time, because he's definitely a player that has the quality to pick out his teammate from that position. Of course, for a number of seasons, he played in the A-League, of course, with the likes of Gold Coast United, Newcastle Jets, and finally Melbourne City. We've seen him in NPL Victoria in the last few seasons with Nunawading City, and of course last year he joined Hume.
Well, they've turned the ball over here. Cooper and Brown almost leave it for each other. Monaghan, Cooper flicks it forward. Should be dealt with, and it is by Carvello. And they get up the pitch and get it out for a throw.
And of course, not only were they former teammates at Nunawading City, Cooper and Brown, but they also spent some time together at Gold Coast United in United's final A-League season there. Of course, Mitch Cooper ended up going into the history books by becoming the youngest captain in A-League history. Although, if you ask most people, I'm sure that they'll tell you that that was nothing more than a publicity stunt from United's owner Clive Palmer. That I must admit is quite annoying nowadays with a lot of his ads on TV.
Yes, he's definitely getting his money worth of advertisement. Ball forward. Sweet on the left channel. Can get there first. Sweet does. Back post. Here's a chance. Brown. And it's in. Hume City get a third. And it's James Brown. Pierce Clark was able to get a touch to it, but it rebounded back off Brown. And Brown and Cooper steal the show. It is 3-0 to Hume City in the 25th minute.
Shambles in the back for Dandenong Thunder there. They couldn't have really asked for a worse start. Because they've really just been disappointing. Hume City have picked them apart at the back there, and you're going to be fearing the worst now for Dandenong Thunder. You're hoping that their heads don't drop and that they can mount an unlikely comeback, but it's all Hume City here, and the crowd is in shock.
See Vedin Kadkari on the bench, clapping his teammates, trying to keep him motivated. 25 minutes, 3-0 at home. You're right, it does have those shades of that South Melbourne game last year. So two of the best mates, James Brown and Mitch Cooper, they've sort of followed each other around.
Yeah, because they were together also at Newcastle Jets, weren't they? But yeah, for those Thunder players that were a part of that 9-0 loss last year, you've got to wonder whether their minds will now turn back to that defeat. I mean, it must have left a psychological mark as well on them, and you hope that they can make a game of this, that they can get themselves back into it. But as I've said, it's all been Hume City, and in my pre-season preview for Hume City that was featured in the Herald Sun on Thursday, I did mention that getting the best out of Cooper and Brown will be key to Hume City's success this season. It's definitely commenced in the best possible way for them.
That's right. Assume will play at the back, full of confidence at Hume City. Bowler. Now Henson. Once again, there's space for Brown. Hendon couldn't find him. So now here's Monaghan. Switches it out wide to Sweet. Sweet. Good challenge there by Ismaili. Out for a throw. So it's out for the throw for the Thunder. So just 25 minutes gone. It is still plenty of time to get back into the game. Especially when you've got the quality of Brandon Barnes and Peter Skapitis. Mo Feasy on this right-hand side is a very talented youngster who's got a couple of NPL goals last season.
Yeah, he's one that broke through last season and really looked impressive. They had a young core of players that commenced at the start of the campaign with Mehmeti and Ismaili, and we saw a few more of them make their debuts towards the end of the season as Kaya gets played in here.
Can he find a teammate? Back post, nobody's there. Carvalho. And they can start the attack. Carvalho over the top. Skapitis going straight for the ball was Monahan. Well done. Skapitis to turn. Now here's the chance for the Thunder on the break. Skapitis, weight of numbers, wins it back for Hume. No foul. 3 Hume players went straight at him then and won it back. Bowler to Brown. Left
Poor
it
pass.
short is Marley. Heavy touch and Sweet will clear. So once again, a couple of opportunities for the Thunder in attack, and Skapitis, as he was driving forward, had options left and right and tried to go himself.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd sort of contend that he didn't have the right options as ball gets played through to Barnes.
Well, then Barnes normally scores in this situation. Good turn. Can he fire? He does, but Michael Weir at his near post was unbeatable on that shot. Straight at him, straight into the hands. Once again, there's still a glimmer of hope for the Thunder. They've had their opportunities, but Michael Weir 3 times has been called upon, and he's been able to make the saves for Hume. Ball forward. Kaya heads it on. Here's going to be Hewitt. Hewitt clips it in, but Pierce Clark will be the first one to it.
I guess one of the things that you can say about Hume City, and it was, I believe, also the case last season, is that this off-season they've really flown under the radar, mainly because a large number of their recruits are actually from interstate, so we don't know too much about them, whereas with Dandenong Thunder, they are signing established players that we do know a lot about. For example, Peter Skapetis, you also do have Kieran Dover, as I mentioned, who's out injured tonight, Christian Cavallo, Giannis Georgopoulos, we've seen at Oakley before, so if there was one team that you were coming into this clash hyped up about, it would have been the Dandenong Thunder, but Hume City have been outstanding in this opening half hour, and they look to continue this on. But if you're Dandenong Thunder, all you've got to really ask for is that one goal to perhaps get them back into the contest, get their confidence up and get them back into the game, because up front you've got the likes of Brandon Barnes that can win a game on his own when he's in peak form. They'll be looking to him to fight them back into this contest.
It's been a good 5 minutes from the Thunder. Forced Hume City deep inside their penalty box then, but in the end Hume City dealt with it. Carpenter trying to get through, lays it off, and Hendon will pick it up. Brown into midfield, little ball over the top. It's too easy for Hume as Hewitt will chase after this. Does he get there first?
Nah.
Referee says no, and it was Mehmeti who needed it back to his goalkeeper.
I think Hewitt went to make the most of it. There was a bit of a nudge from Mehmeti, but it was all legal in my opinion. Wasn't enough to get him to go to ground. It saw that he wasn't going to get to the ball and decided to fall there.
He did get a bit shoulder to shoulder towards the end of that challenge. Ball over the top. Urson Kaya. Mehmeti once again gets it out for a throw. So one thing that's been real noticeable in this game is when Hume City win the ball back, there's plenty of spaces going into attack. Brown and also Urson Kaya are finding space out wide. There really hasn't been a great deal of pressure in midfield, so Bowler and Monahan have been able to pick the ball up and turn. Now they go through. Cuscieri. Now to Cavallo. In fact, it was Carpenter, now Cavallo. Blumgart. We've barely mentioned Blumgart and Georgopoulos, and now it's over the top. Barnes gets to the left foot, tries to turn his defender. Well helped out by Monahan. Thunder still hold on to it. Skapetis is able to
pass there from Ismaili.
I think the pole might have got in the way of the stream there, but the ball's out. It's going to be a Hume City throw.
Yeah, and it was poor communication there because Skapetis and Ismaili went for the same ball, and when Ismaili got it back later, the pass to Skapetis wasn't the best. But one player that really did impress me from the little I saw of Hume last season was Gideon Sweet, who of course moved back to Victoria after a couple of years playing for Sydney Harcoa, where he actually earned FA Cup action. I think he even played in their game against Melbourne City, as Brown is adjudged to have been offside.
Yeah, he is, and he was probably the best player on the night against Melbourne City in the FFA Cup a couple of years ago. And so I believe he's played for Richmond in the past before going up to Sydney.
Richmond, Southern Stars. Of course, he was a regular at North Caulfield down in the state leagues. I believe he's actually an ex-teammate of Brad Blumenthal.
Yep.
And he was another player who, Blumenthal was another player who was quite impressive for Hume City last year. Was a big jump from him going from the third tier to the first tier Victorian football, but he chipped in with some important goals, and his pace is really something that can hurt a lot of defenders in this league.
See with Urson Kaya preferred from him. Urson Kaya we've seen play a lot as a fullback, role at Bulleen in the early years of Hume, and we're looking at him now at the moment. He's playing centre forward as the front three do like to rotate for Hume City, or the front four.
Yeah, he's Mr. Reliable really for Hume City. He can play in any position, has got a lot of pace to him, and can open up defences with his trickery. Of course, he does share something in common with his counterpart for Thunder, Christian Carvalho, in that he's also played one A-League game for Melbourne City, or Melbourne Heart as they were known back in the day. But he wasn't able to kick on from then. But he's been one of Hume City's more consistent players over the last couple of seasons. I guess with him, it can be a bit of a challenge to get his peak performances up from one week to another one. But when he's on form, he's definitely a hard man to stop.
Hume win it back again. Sweet gets past Ismaili. He was able to drag in and get the foot in and get it away from Sweet. Hume hold on to it. Bowler switches it out wide. Hendon can't get there and out for a throw.
The one thing that would be quite concerning if you're Veton Cardi is that Thunder do seem quite open. You know, Hume City are finding themselves having a lot of time, a lot of space on the ball. And it has been a very open contest. I mean, we saw it in the opening minutes. Hume City were caught out at the back with a 2-on-2 situation. Skapetis got played through by Barnes, 1-on-1 with Weir, who produced that save that seems such a long time ago now, given the context of this game, that Hume City have gone 3-0 up here.
They look to go forward now, but this one's got a bit too much on it. Straight to Clark. So again, you can always send us a message on it on the Facebook stream and interact with us here at Dackland Stadium. George Andrews Reserve. Assume move forward again. KR. It looks to bring it over the top. Pierce Clark knew where his post was and lets it go out for a goal kick.
Obviously, you mentioned earlier on this the final game of round one, which has featured a number of pulsating encounters. Which would be to pick the bunch for yourself? Which storylines really strike out from this round one as being key?
Well, for me, Green Gully finishing pretty low down the ladder. Altona's had a pretty solid pre-season, beating the likes of Avondale, and had a pretty strong team in today. But that 1-0 away win against Altona, which is always a tricky place to play, as Altona is finally back in the top flight after many years not being able to make that jump in the State League to the NPL. But, gee, they've gone strength to strength since that system's been opened up. So for me, that was a really good win for Downs and Green Gully to get a win in round one after such a poor year last year.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, with Green Gully, goal scoring was the problem last season. They brought in Alex Salmon from Western Australia, former Carlisle United player, and he got the winner today. They've also got Matthew Fletcher that spent a bit of time earlier on in his career at Sunderland. Of course, featured briefly in the A-League for the Central Coast Mariners. So you'd imagine with those two and the likes of Jonathan Boonis, Jay Davies, players that can give you goals from midfield, that they should be okay in that department this season. But yeah, disappointing start to Altona. Maybe it might take them a few games to get adjusted to top flight football. Of course, they'd have lost one of their key players, John McShane, for the first half of the season. They did replace him with a player that has some pedigree to him in the Dutch forward. Yes, Haman, who has scored against Ajax previously, no less. So a disappointing start to Altona, but I'm sure they'll bounce back. They've got Melbourne Knights next week away from home, who they beat last year in the FA Cup, and Knights themselves coming off a fantastic victory last night away at Oakley. Not many people saw that coming.
I did. I'm going to brag a bit. I did tip that. Melbourne Knights really have recruited quite strongly. In my mind, I reckon they've got a top 3 or top 4 squad. It's just all about putting it together. And Hamish Watson, I did see a good little Photoshop of Viduka's, the picture of Mark Viduka with Watson's head on it today. Scoring 2 goals on debut.
Well, that's the thing with Knights that you could say about them over the last few seasons. Really, since Andrew Barisic departed the club in 2015, they really struggled for a consistent goal scorer. And I think that, I was listening into one of the games where you did predict the Knights to be top 4 candidates, and I must admit, eyebrows were raised because I did not expect that of them. I was actually of the opposite view, that Knights hadn't recruited maybe quite as well, but they've certainly proved myself and a number of people wrong with that victory against Oakley, who a lot of people, I guess, would have had been even championship contenders coming into the season, given some of the players they've signed.
Bowler to the back post. Brown trying to get it back. He's going to get a corner off his Smiley.
But look, if there's one thing that you have to say these early days, I mean, how many people walking away from this stadium at this time last year when Thunder lost 9-0 would have tipped Thunder to actually stay in the competition, and not only stay, but even challenge for finals football at one stage. So a lot can change over the course of a season, particularly given it's a 26-round season where teams obviously will have some teams will have quite a lot of turnover mid-season. FA Cup comes into play, of course, player departures, coaching departures. So it's a long season, and you don't want to get yourself off to the wrong start.
It's a chance for Hume City with another corner. Bounces in the box. Skipetis will clear. Now Sweet. Back post. I don't think Kaya's got back on side. Flag stays down though. Fires it in, and Hume City nearly get a third. And Cooper was that far away. Only probably about a metre from getting a first half hat-trick. But Kaya did look like he was on an offside position from here. Let us know in the Facebook comments.
Yeah, and I think for Mitch Cooper, coming into last season, a lot of people had Green Gully as one of the teams to watch, perhaps challenge the might of Heidelberg and Bentley Greens for that championship, but it wasn't to be the case. Despite getting off to quite a decent start, they really fell away mid-season, and towards the end of the season, it was really a question of whether they'd survive. And Cooper, I guess, epitomised those struggles better than most other players, given that I think he only ended up finishing on 2 goals for the entire season. So he's already equalled that record here tonight inside the opening half, which can only boost his confidence up.
Yeah, look at that Hume City squad. They really do have to rely on Mitch Cooper to play really up top and get those goals for Hume City. Marco Delic, former Melbourne City attacker, sort of the other option they've got in attack. Ball forward. Hume City. Can they keep it in? Kaya. Oh, it's a strong challenge by Mehmedi. Surely he's going to go into the book for that. And Hume City going to get this free kick. As we said before, with Green Gully, with the Thunder almost challenging from being in such a poor start to the season. Kingston City was another one as well that had a lot of injury problems around round 21, 22. They look like that they might be dropping down a division, but as soon as they got some players back, they almost made finals. And at the moment, 84 minutes gone, Port Melbourne 0, Kingston City 0.
Yeah, Kingston was one of those teams that really struggled for injuries, with injuries to key personnel last year, Chris Irwin, Simo Jovanovic, and it was really mid-season with the recruitment of Alex Caniglia from Green Gully that they were able to thrive in that second half of the season, get a few underdog victories under their name and survive.
Ball in, Bowler, volley goes over the top.
Should have made it 4. Should have made it 4.
The set-piece defending from the Dandenong Thunder's been all over the place. Hume City with a couple of real good opportunities. What about the delivery again there by Hewitt?
Quality. He looks quality so far. I know we're only less than a half into the season, but Hewitt looks to be a great pickup. I was at the Dandenong City Avondale game last night, and Sakai's delivery was quality. A player that scored 1 goal from the set piece, delivered another assist from set piece, and also 2 other assists. But Hewitt's in the same boat. He looks a dangerous man from the set piece opportunity.
And I must admit, it was some really good phone camera work too, getting that Sakai goal. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, it's on the Corner Flag Facebook page. Ball out wide. Blumgart, Hume City numbers almost get it clear. Blumgart in the corner. Hume won't be able to get it out for a goal kick, but they do clear it away. Georgopoulos looking for support, hasn't really got it, so has to go back. The Thunder, can they at least get one back before half-time to try to stay in this game? Over the top. Too much on that, and it's going to be out for a goal kick.
Well, we did mention last season, Hume City having an underwhelming season, but Gideon Sweet and Brad Blumenthal looking like two of their best players. Of course, one of their former teammates in the Thunder team is Alan Blomgard, and we do have a comment coming in from North Caulfield Maccabi, who say very proud to have former players Giddy Sweet, Brad Blumenthal and Alan Blomgard playing in this game. Of course, North Caulfield Maccabi have a proud tradition of promoting young players into their senior team. Of course, former Victory man Jordan Brown is another North Caulfield player. Of course, they did have one of the most esteemed youth coaches in Victorian football in Boris Shiroshton at the club for a number of years, so I'm sure he would have been quite key in the development of these boys.
So where is Geordie Brown now in the world?
I do recall he was at Box Hill last season, but he's of course a player that suffered from a number of injuries, reoccurring injuries that have really not helped him. Of course, he was on the books at Mal Victory, even got a few games under their belt for the senior team in the A-League, but it's one of those things, you know, you can be the most talented player in the world, but if you don't have the luck with injuries, you're not going to be afforded the opportunity to realise your potential.
The board's gone up for 2 minutes. What has been a brilliant half away from home from Hume City. Carpenter still trying to get the ball forward. And it's going to be a foul. Hume City will get out of trouble again. Surely Wilson will be in no rush to take this.
I mean, if you're Veton Korkadi at half-time, do you change personnel, make a few impact substitutions? We saw a few weeks ago in the A-League, Marco Kurtz have enormous success, albeit under different circumstances, with his team getting a goal back before the half-time break, but bringing on the likes of Nikolai Miller-Uznic and Mirko Bolin seemed to change the game, as did the red card. So, you know, do you look at the likes of Luke Gallo and maybe Omar Marche and really think that these are two impact players that can really make a difference in attack, although Thunder's problems have been defensive this half?
Well, that's the youngster on the wing, Mo Feezy, hasn't been able to get into the game. Gideon Sweet's really dictated the left-hand side for Hume, overlapping and going forward. So if it's without a doubt a real talented youngster as he's on the ball now and he drives it forward into the channel for Barnes. Just a little bit too much on it.
Not the worst of balls, but just Weir was also quite alert, as we see a second ball end up on the pitch. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these personal matchups, these one-on-ones, have been a case of men v boys. And I know a Thunder have a lot of young kids, and you've got to give them a lot of credit for getting a lot of these young players into the senior team, because there are some NPL clubs that have other priorities, and that's, I guess you can say, maybe counterintuitive to the actual aims of the NPL.
As we look at a few of the youngsters, we'll go through them. The Thunder have started soon as Kaya out wide. Goes to the corner. Looks like Hume City are quite happy to get to half-time as we look at him. Mohamed Feezy, you've got Sevdam Ismaili, Mercer Mehmedi, Blake Carpenter, and you've still got Christian Carvalho and Peter Skapetis, who are still in the early 20s. So
yeah, either all teenagers or in their early 20s as Perry Muir blows for half-time in what was a fantastic half of football. If you're a Hume City fan, if you're a Dandenong Thunder fan, well, he couldn't have gotten off to the worst start to this campaign.
That's it. Well, it's half-time here at Dackland Stadium, former George Andrews Reserve, or the Thunderdome, as NPL media like to call it. But Hume City 3, Cooper with 2 goals Two excellently well-taken goals. First was a back post header. It was an excellent finish. But those two goals in quick succession, the 11th and 14th minute, really put Dandenong Thunder on the back foot, and they had their heads down for quite a while after that. And then it was James Brown who got the third goal at the back post with a good little finish. Clark tried all his best to save it. In the end, it was bundled into the net. So, as you said, it is Dandenong Thunder 0, Hume City 3, and we will have just a short break before we go into the second half. Two. Hello everybody and welcome back here for the second half of Dandenong Thunder versus Hume City. A first half that was really dominated by Hume City, with Mitch Cooper scoring 2 early goals and then his best mate James Brown scoring about 15 minutes later. It is Hume City with 3 first half goals, which really silenced the crowd here, a decent crowd at the newly named Dackland Stadium. My name's Chris Gleeson and welcome back for the second half to Mir Kulas.
Yes, thank you, Chris. Obviously, one of the things that was a feature of Dandenong Thunder when they first got promoted into Victorian, or back into the Victorian Premier League in 2009, was just how formidable it was coming down here to George Andrews Reserve. You often had 4-figure crowds, as we see Hume City on the attack straight away with Brown in the corner there. Plays it back to Ersin Kaya.
Ball into the box, back post. Deal with it, but here's a chance for Cooper. Can he get a shot away? He lays it on to Brown. Turns away. Kaya, back post, looking for Cooper, and he slices it out for a goal kick.
Poor cross from Ersin Kaya, who was fantastic in that first half for Hume City going forward, as were most of their players. I mean, really, Nick Hegarty couldn't have asked more from his team, but back to the point I was making, when Thunder first got promoted, I mean, teams hated coming here. It was such a formidable atmosphere, a partisan home crowd that really took the 12-man to something else, really. And a few teams used to come away here where the Thunder were, you know, flying high up at the top or even mid-table. Few teams used to come away with 3 points here, but you know, certainly hasn't been a case since they've gotten back into the top flight over the last couple of seasons.
Here's Hewitt, first time ball. Here's a chance, Cooper! He drags it just wide. It was all too easy again for Hume City. Hewitt with a no-look pass into a dangerous area, and just Cooper scuffed the shot and it just dragged it wide.
And of course, we remember in the first half, the early chance was Brandon Barnes playing in Peter Skapetis and Michael Weir making that huge save, which ended up being quite instrumental in the way proceedings panned out in that first half. Maybe if you're Dandenong Thunder, you'd look at that and you'd look at it as, you know, a wake-up call to finally get going into action, and maybe if you convert one of your opportunities, you're right back into the game. They can't afford to let Hume City have more of those types of opportunities where one of their players, one of their attackers, has an open shot on goal.
Speaking to the Dandy Thunder sponsors and supporters close to us at half-time, the under-20s did end in a 4-4 draw, and they sort of believe they've still got goals in this game. With Brandon Barnes, such a prolific goal scorer at this NPL level, the Thunder fans still believe they're a chance. Still plenty of time to go.
And we do apologise for any technical difficulties with the commentary. We're working on fixing them. Let us know in the comments if you notice any improvements.
We do stress that this game is a bit like a pilot, just a bit of a test run. So we do appreciate everybody watching, and we always appreciate the feedback. So we're just trying to sort out the commentary there. We can see it's just peaking just a little bit, so we'll see how we go. As it is Thunder. Smalley fires it in for Barnes. First time ball. Couldn't find Feezy, and Sweet clears it up the pitch. So
one interesting feature, of course, about Dandenong Thunder this year with their home games is that you've got George Andrews Reserve now having sponsorship and being known as Dackland Stadium. You don't often see that at this sort of level. Of course, South Melbourne were synonymous for a number of years during the latter stages of the NSL and also early days of the Victorian Premier League, or their time in the Victorian Premier League, with being known as Bob Janes Stadium. The Knights had a period 10 years ago where they were where Summer Street was called a Mansion Stadium. So good to see clubs attracting more and more sponsorship. Of course, we did speak a bit about the movement for a second division, further professionalism. The more professional that these NPL clubs do get, the better. As we see referee Perry Muir having a word with Brandon Barnes there.
It will be Hume City with to kick the ball back.
As you see Hendon with the ball here.
So hopefully we've sorted out those sound issues, the audio issues with the commentary. Let us know in the comments as always. And here's Mehmeti. Plays it forward. Bowler and Hendon mop up. And now Monaghan will go back to Michael Weir, who tells his team to slow things down. Hume City can drop a little bit deeper and be a little bit more compact the second half with his 3-goal lead.
Yeah, if Thunder can mount an unlikely comeback, I've got to say it'd be right up there in terms of one of the best games that I've called upon. Actually, if I was to pick a top game at the moment, it'll probably be a game that was played at this venue a couple of years ago. North Sunshine Eagles and Preston Lions played. I think it was
FFA Cup game.
a 4-4 draw that went to penalties that ultimately North Sunshine Eagles won. Of course, we do know the fierce rivalry that exists between those two teams, and I'm sure they'll be at it again this year with both of them looking to earn promotion from State League 1 and get themselves into the into NPL 2, or however it's going to be next year. Of course, it will be revised. I think there'll be 3 tiers, but I think both those teams have quite large fan bases, particularly a team like Preston Lions, of course, a former National Soccer League outfit. They had a tremendous 4-figure crowd in that promotion do-or-die game against their close rivals Geelong last year.
Oh, Kasheri's made a mistake here, and pouncing upon it is James Brown. James Brown and Mitch Cooper both with doubles for Hume City as they now move to 4-0. Just Kasheri couldn't control it. James Brown, what an excellent finish that was.
Yeah, it's a shocking mistake from Jay Kushikeri, who, of course, we saw feature in midfield quite often last season. I assume he is an unnatural defender playing there at the heart of the back tonight, and he has not been convincing right from the first whistle, and that really caps off a really disappointing opening 15 minutes for the Queenslander.
Well, it's the last game of the round, and with the score now at 4-0, Hume City will end the round in top position if it ends this way. Mehmeti over the top. Barnes shields the ball away from Brown, but he's got 4 players around him. Hume City quick to pounce on Brandon Barnes. Michael Weir will slow things down again. Hume will play from the back. And it's just with the other result that this game overlapped with. Port Melbourne and Kingston City, it ended 0-0. The only game without goals this round. Hendon. Hewitt. First time ball for Cooper looking for Brown. Pierce Clark off his line very quickly and starts the counter attack. Here's Carvello. Tries into the attacking half. Early ball finds its way through. Skipetis. Needs support. Now they can move it forward. Plumgart. To midfield. Barnes. Monaghan at his back. So well at shielding the ball away from defenders, but again Hume City crowd him out and force him back.
Of course, we are live and interactive on the NPL Victoria page, so keep the comments coming in. We've got George Markowski saying, Preston Macedonia will rise again, don't you worry. It'll certainly be between them and North Sunshine Eagles this year. Both have recruited quite well, of course. Preston recruiting a former A-League player in Andre Zinho, who we saw briefly at Perth Glory a few seasons back. And also North Sunshine Eagles. I mean, they traditionally recruit quite well, but they've got Timmy Mala. They've managed to convince him to move away from Lakeside Stadium and join the cause at Larissa Reserve. Of course, James Zanelli, a former South Melbourne player as well, former Thunder goalkeeper who's at North Sunshine there for his 2nd season. Dylan Mameshi, probably one of the best number 9s outside the NPL.
Well, here's a chance at the back post. Carpenter fires the volley, but drags it wide. And Larissa Reserve is definitely a place you want to go. It's such a great atmosphere. It really
and they've done well in terms of a lot of the improvements that they've made to that venue over the years. We were mentioning some of the boys that North Sunshine Eagles have. Of course, news came through this week that Preston Lions had signed Sam Smith, the English forward from Geelong, who actually ended up being the player to score that goal that took Geelong up at the expense of the Lions. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of season he has. Of course, a couple of years back they had Chris Davis, who scored 4 goals in that famous encounter against North Sunshine.
Carvello, early ball in. Weir will get there first. And also the other problem that the Preston Lions will face is with the restructuring, that State League, they're still going to have to spend an extra year from making the top flight, because
in the third tier, essentially, yeah.
So with a new third tier being created, it looks likely that the East versus West will move into a NPL 2 and an NPL 3 next season. The State League clubs are going to find an extra year to jump to the top league, unlike what Altona Magic have been able to do.
Yeah, but they're one of the great things that, promotion and relegation, having it opened up over the last few seasons from the state leagues to the NPLs, it's attracted a lot of ambition to a lot of state league clubs. I know even down this end of town, you've got in State League 1 this year, you've got both Dufton and Masnod United getting promoted. I mean, Masnod United 10 years ago, they didn't even exist as a club. They made their way all the way from State League 5 to State League 1. They've actually just signed Gus McLeod as Director of Coaching, and they'll be looking to get promoted into the NPL in the next few years. They've actually spent quite a lot over the years to not only get their senior team up to scratch, but to also have a number of juniors merging with Mount Waverley Victory. You also have, teams that have been there over the years. Mornington have traditionally been a strong State 1 team. Beaumaris came into State League 1 last year and have their sights set on NPL football with a new venue to call home this year as well. So generally a lot of competition in the state leagues to get promoted. Another team I forgot to mention, Melbourne City, have looked quite good over the years, and of course is the club that Brad Blumenthal previously played for. And we do have a comment coming in from in the comment section what is whereabouts are for this game. He's actually on the bench, so you'd probably see him later on in this half.
At the moment, it's Brown to drive forward. Kayak could have given it back to Brown. The offside flag goes up in any case.
Now, we will put it up out there to you guys. Which State League club are you most looking forward to watching this year? Whether that be, in State League 1 or even down further into the state leagues. And tell us what about that club is the appealing thing this year, because we mentioned a lot of ambition in State League football. Tell us which club you're looking to watch this year and that others should keep an eye out for.
Sit and Samir will patrol the comments, and we'll talk a bit of State League football as well as the NPL. Hume City 4 away from home against the Dandenong Thunder. 2 goals to Mitch Cooper, 2 goals to James Brown. There's Dixon. Loses the ball. No, he's managed to get it back, but just has to clear in the midfield. Finds its way to Cooper. Hewitt holds on to the ball, and that's going to be a foul to the Thunder.
And we do have a comment coming in from Brett Farley, who I guess shares the same sort of sentiment that you did earlier in this game. It says one of the best games was round 1, Hume City, Melbourne Knights 2 years ago. Game drawn 2-2 after goalkeeper Michael Weir heading in a 95th minute equaliser from a Hegarty free kick. Of course, we mentioned Fraser Chalmers did get sent off in that game. Both Weir and Chalmers, Queensland goalkeepers. So I know we spent a bit of time talking about the likes of Cam Sober, Shepherd, Miller getting that A-League step up. But it's also good to see another Queenslander and former NPL Victoria player, Brendan White, get some minutes in the A-League recently with the Brisbane Roar following Jamie Young's suspension.
Skipetis has just won the ball. Knocked over Paul Wilson. Ball into the box is cleared. Thunder retain possession. Sherry plays it out wide. Carpenter to take him on. Skipetis out wide. Crosses it in low. Hume City get it clear and retain possession. Brown trying to play it up the line to Kaya and see out for a throw.
Comments flooding in. Lockie Smith says Moreland United in State League 2. Ziggy Lee Osborne says Murrelbark Soccer Club. Get around the Barkers, who of course were one of the inaugural National Soccer League teams back in 1977, which I guess to a lot of people nowadays seems quite bizarre, given that, you know, the humble surrounds of Esther Reserve, and you couldn't
Especially
imagine
when you're
that.
talking 40-odd years ago as well.
Yeah, and you couldn't imagine that being a National Soccer League venue nowadays, could you?
So best of luck to the Barkers this season. State League football still hasn't kicked off yet. NPL football does traditionally start quite a bit early. I think it's a couple of weeks earlier this season as well. And as we look towards next week, South Melbourne get one game in before they lose the Lakeside venue. As next Friday night, they'll take on Dandenong City, both sides who lost in the opening round. Ball over the top. Hendon, first time, back post. Kasheri gets it clear. Here's a chance for Hewitt. Gets underneath it and puts it over.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what sort of crowd South Melbourne do attract on Friday night next week, given the deflating blow, I guess, that a lot of their supporters have experienced in the off-season. Of course, not being admitted into the A-League Western Melbourne group, getting the nod ahead by a much maligned FFA, you could say. But it's interesting. One of the other, we talk about State League football, one of the things that I guess took a lot of people by surprise over the off-season was the fact that Whittlesea United managed to sign Ursum Gulam, who we previously saw in the A-League with Adelaide United, but more notably, he played for Turkish powerhouse Besiktas, won the Turkish league there, also capped by Turkey. He's going to be playing State League football this year. A few surprise faces that he's not perhaps at Hume City.
Yeah, a few surprise faces because we sort of expected he might have gone there, but here's Carpenter to drive forward. Great sliding challenge by Hewitt, wins the ball. Barnes inside the box. Lays it off. Skipetis. Quick feet, wins the foul. While the fans have been asking on the comments where Blue Menthol is, he's getting close to be substituted on. He's Brad Blue Menthol.
Stuart Webster, former Dandenong Thunder goalkeeper, says Dufton. And he, of course, is in between the sticks for the Doves, who...
Still going, Webster.
Yes, he is. I think he's got his brothers there with him as well. Rini Marucci, a former Dandenong Thunder player, is one of the star men for Dufton, who will be looking to maybe not achieve promotion straight away, but definitely establish themselves as a quality State 1 team.
And you got any more questions about Victorian football, you can always ask the Encyclopedia of Victorian Football, Demir Kulas. As here's a chance, Skapetis into the wall. Referee shouts for a handball in the wall. There was plenty of hands by the side. It might have struck a hands, but the referee does not give a penalty, but the Thunder will have a corner.
Yeah, it wasn't one of the cases where the hand seems to be raised up in the air. If it did strike a hand, it would have struck it while it was to the side of the player.
Thunder with his corner. Decent ball in. Mehmeti couldn't reach it. Hume City get it clear. And I must admit, it's going to be Blumenthal to make this, to come on for this substitution. And also great hospitality from Dandenong Thunder too, have made a really, really good spread for us. We've had an excellent feed here at half time. Well looked after. It's a great club with great food. It's a very well-supported club, but the fans are a little bit unhappy now with this scoreline. Ball forward. Can they at least get a goal back in this game? Hume City win the ball back again. Cooper to Sweet, who clears the ball up the line. In fact, it's gone out for a throw.
Maybe now it's time to make that change for Hume City, as we see Julian Costin engaging in some banter in the comment section, saying Webby is finished. Of course, I think he's a member of Dufton's coaching staff himself. Formerly coached a number of junior teams here in Dandenong Thunder, and I think Mercer Mehmeti is one of his former junior players that he actually did coach. So I'm sure he'd be looking at games like this, feeling quite proud to see one of his former junior players playing in the highest level of Victorian football.
He's carving out an excellent start to his senior career is Mehmeti. Hume still hold on to the ball. They hold off on that substitution as well. Can tell you it'll be James Brown who will make way for Blumenthal. As the Thunder bring the ball up. Mehmeti. Carvalho into midfield. Now they turn. Georgopoulos switches it out wide. Ismaili into the corner. Skipetis gets there first. Tries to win a foul. Peter Murray's let the physical challenges ride a little bit in this game. And it will be the substitution for Hume City. So James Brown, Blumenthal, gets his opportunity to come off the bench. He's got himself a good 20-25 minutes to show to the coaching staff why he should be starting.
It's a good shift from James Brown. Gets the season off to a great start with those 2 goals. I'd say, he'd probably be, if not man of the match, right up there with the likes of Mitch Cooper, Hewitt, Gideon Sweet have all had tremendous games. I mean, even Wilson at the back has done quite well to man-mark Brandon Barnes and keep him scoreless for the time being, as we see quite an eye-catching backdrop to surroundings here with a lit-up skyline.
As Weir clears it. It's a beautiful night here in the southeast of Melbourne. Barnes trying to turn. Once again, Wilson gets it clear. Pull out wide to Cooper. Fires it into the middle. Kaya. Challenge comes in. They win it back. In the midfield. And Thunder will now get a foul in the centre of the park. Skipetis. As Carpenter was free as they looked to play it quickly, or tried to, but Hume got bodies in front of the free kick and wouldn't allow him to.
Julian is asking whether Mohamed Faizi is playing, and he is. Haven't seen much of him this half. He was more involved in that first half.
Ball in, header goes in. Michael Weir will collect that.
As Thunder prepare to bring a sub on with late off-season signing Jack Musgrave about to make his NPL Victoria debut. Interstate signing from Sydney, having featured there for the likes of Bankstown City and Parramatta FC.
Now it's the Thundos. Had a bit of possession recently. Carpenter wins it back. Here's the guy, Mohamed Faizi, trying to find a teammate. Ball finds its way to Blumgard, who fires. Michael Weir once again comfortably takes the sting out of it.
As we see Georgopoulos share a bit of a word with his Hume counterpart, Piri Muir. An experienced referee gets in between them.
Hume City, who haven't offered as much of a threat in the second half, apart from that real James Brown opportunity strike. Got it in the corner now. Ismaili will clear. Mofizi over the top, Monaghan. Now it's Hewitt, lays it off to Cooper. Here's Kaya trying to give it back to him. Straight pass, and Clark will send the Thunder forward.
Here's Christian Cavallo, picks up Skipetis.
Quick feet, Skipetis. Loses out this time. Kaya turns away from Skipetis. And just clipped his ankle, and Hume get the foul.
Not much in there, but probably the right call as Musgrave is about to come on for Mohamed Faizi, who I think alongside Mehmedi would probably be and Ismaili, one of 3 teenagers in the Dandenong Thunder lineup. Skipetis definitely is having a frustrating debut, and I know a few of you out there might remember him quite well from his stints last season in the A-League with the Brisbane Roar and Central Coast Mariners, but ask anyone in Victorian football, in the know in Victorian football, and they'll tell you that Peter Skipetis was quite a talent when he went over to the UK with the likes of Stoke City and QPR, but just didn't have the luck with successive knee injuries really stifling his progress. Of course, he was part of the same South Melbourne youth team that did include a one-time Socceroo, Aydin Hrustic, who is currently playing in the Netherlands with Groningen. So Skipetis would be looking to the NPL this year to really get himself back into the professional sphere with another A-League gig. You do wonder if he can, get himself right this year and have a big season, whether he'd, be a potential Western Melbourne recruit.
Well, that's what we're looking at with that new A-League team in the west of Melbourne. there will be more opportunities for NPL players to make the step up to the professional game. Speaking to a few people at the Western Melbourne group, they are definitely looking at the NPL to try to see around that mid-season to see if there's a few players they want to bring in, and that's a shocking challenge by Hendon. Goes over the ball.
I don't think it's one that's perhaps as bad as it ended up being, given that both players did go lunge in, but Georgopoulos came off second best. Hendon definitely caught him late there, and I wouldn't be surprised if Perry goes into his pocket here with a yellow card being dished out to Will Hendon. Giannis Georgopoulos is not
he's not
accepting
happy with
the apology issued out by Hendon. The last thing Thunder need now, in addition to this heavy defeat, is another injury, given the likes of Bran, Almazovsky, Bragg, and Zijai have suffered, you'd assume, season-ending ACL injuries.
It's shocking luck for pre-season to have one ACL, let alone four. Bragg really, last season, he was a real prominent player in the in their lineup. One of the best sort of midfielders last year, I thought, was Bragg. And he was a big part, along with Brandon Barnes, of seeing the Thunder move from close to the bottom of the ladder to sort of have a late charge at the finals.
Yeah, and another player that Thunder did miss throughout the majority of last season that, is quite one of those ones that's, a young player that's been around at the A-League youth level setup is Nick Glover as well, who's still recovering from an ACL injury. So they definitely haven't had a lot of luck with those injuries over the last few seasons. I know in 2016 a number of injuries really prevented them from ultimately going straight back up into the NPL, and they had to have an extra season in NPL 2 to find themselves back into the top tier. But definitely won't be off to the best of starts tonight if it stays like this, and the game's hit a bit of a slow burn really with...
Well, you talk about that 2016 season where the Thunder really were on fire for the first half of the year, and well, here's a chance. Blumenthal lays it off. Cooper for a hat-trick, lays it off. Here's Kaya, and with his left foot puts the ball onto the club rooms, and that ball's long gone.
Yeah, Ersin Kaya has looked quite good throughout much of tonight's contest, but one thing that's definitely let him down is his final delivery. He had a cross earlier, promising crossing situation early in the half that went out for a goal kick, and that certainly was a poor finish from a player who you'd expect to have at least hit the target. As we see Theo Markellis about to come on, of course. Theo spent time during his formative teenage years at Valencia. Of course, we saw him in the A-League with nplvictoria for a brief period, but he's really made himself a household name in the NPL, mainly with Hume City. Spent last season here at Dandenong Thunder, but he's back at Hume City, and he'll definitely be looking to bang in a few goals over the course of the season. Definitely when he is fully fit, when he is firing, he is definitely a tricky customer to deal with.
Theo Markellis last year was in fine form against his old club Hume City, where he spent that 1 year away from. 2 goals at George Andrews Reserve here, and 2 special finishes as Hume City lost pretty convincingly against the Thunder. Ball forward. Skipetis out wide to Carpenter. Carpenter back post. Here's Brandon Barnes' chance, and Weir makes the save, and it's off the post, and Michael Weir collects, and his clean sheep is intact.
Yeah, I don't think it actually came off the post in the end there. Michael Weir got a really strong hand there to deny Barnes from opening his account for the 2019 season, and he's been in tremendous form. We have mentioned numerous occasions this evening that save that he made early on as Barnes is pulled through away here.
Barnes with another opportunity, wants the left foot, forced back. Blumgart to Carpenter. Brilliant delivery from him before to find Barnes. Now Carvello. Cuts inside. Hume City with a well-timed challenge from Hewitt, who's having an excellent game for Hume City, and he starts another attack. Over the top. Blumenthal can't get on the end of it. Clark will pick it up.
And Hume will empty their bench, not only with Markellis about to come on, but also Matty Lazaridis, who has joined the boys from ABD Stadium after a long association with Pasco Vale made over 100 appearances for the Rams since debuting in 2013, and he's another wide forward / winger that will be dangerous going forward.
This is definitely going to be that left-sided auxiliary player that, as Nick Hegarty said, he can go into left back if they do need that during the season. Blumgard straight at Weir. So we'll wait to see what substitutions Hume will make, or who will come off for Marcellus and Lazaridis. Urson Kaya on the deck. And it will be Urson Kaya to come off. It's going to be Lazaridis for Kaya. And it's going to be,
of course,
Marcellus for Cooper.
Yeah, of course, Urson Kaya, namesake of Hume City President Steve Kaya, who has put significant financial investment into this team over the last decade or so. I'm sure he would have been quite proud with their achievements in the FA Cup in 2015 particularly, but also in 2016 where they were knocked out both times by Mel Victory. Of course, one of their players from that group of players, Jai Ingham, ended up making the step up to the A-League as Perry Muir goes and collects the ball.
And if you can hear that noise in the background, I think somebody's just started up a motorbike very close to us.
No, it's actually a car engine, which isn't quite surprising down here in Dandenong South. A
nice collection of cars. I've parked my little humble Subaru Impreza right in front of a couple of Mercs and a BMW truck down. So my banged up Impreza doesn't look too great next to the cars. Over the top. Hewitt. One of his rare turnovers tonight. Jopless forward. Monaghan away. Now Bowler. Those two have done a great job screening the back four for Hume City. And they can move the ball forward. Carvello on the left wing. Early ball back post. Trying to reel it in was Brandon Barnes. It's forced away from goal now. Georgopoulos got a little bobble and still was able to control it. Barnes forward. A little bit too much on it, and it's going to be out harmlessly for a goal kick.
Yeah, Georgopoulos, a late off-season signing. I think his addition was in response to losing Josh Bragg for what you'd assume to be the remainder of the season. And, of course, he does return to Melbourne after a stint in Greece. Greek-born midfielder that first came to prominence in NPL Victoria after joining Oakley in 2016, spent a couple of seasons there. But I believe he was playing in the Greek lower leagues prior to his arrival here at Dackland Stadium.
I believe he struck up a good partnership with Stratometros
as
well too, the two Greek-born midfielders. Stratometros has now moved his way to South Melbourne.
Yeah, although I would say one thing that was quite noticeable when those two did play together at Oakley was that they were quite similar players in terms of what they gave you. Of course, I think Georgopoulos' place in the team, he ended up losing it with the arrival of Wayne Wallace from Hume City in mid-2017. Wayne Wallace, of course, finds himself nowadays at Langwarrin down there with the Scotty Miller Revolution, which didn't get off to the best start today. With a heartbreaking 3-2 defeat in the 96th minute as Rami Najareen, who's sent in the A-League for Melbourne City, ended up scoring the winner there after.
So Najareen with a double, I think, today. They got off to a 2-0 lead, I believe.
And then David Sturden, I was just about to say, equalised for Langy in the 94th minute. But it wasn't to be for the hosts as Melbourne City, who generally start off strongly because that's when they can really rely on and call upon a lot of their top youth team players to actually play for the team. Not only did we see him, but we saw Moody Najir playing today, Connor Metcalf. So City were definitely had a lot of quality to them today. They're definitely one of the toughest teams to beat in NPL 2 when they are in full strength.
So I have spoken to a few people, most notably Joey Lynch, who believes that they are a bit of a smoky to get promoted. But as we've seen with the A-League NPL sides, they get to about halfway through the year, and quite a few changes do occur at the ending of the A-League season. So we'll wait to see how that pans out.
Yeah, and they get younger as the season goes on because they elevate a lot of the players from the NPL 20s lineups that they do have some of those players as young as 14, 15, 16 into their senior teams. And, you know, if you are a A-League youth team, do you necessarily want to be playing in a top flight? We saw Victoria there in 2016, and they really did struggle for most of the season. They did start the campaign off quite well when they had the likes of Joey Katabian, George Howard, Kieran Dovar, Stefan Negro to call upon, but as soon as those boys got elevated to the A-League or got released, then they really struggled up against, you know, guys with a number of seasons of top flight football under their belt.
As I said, the NPL East and West also kicking off this weekend. I must admit, my little smoky in the West is going to be Werribee City. It's a potential promotion side. I believe they've signed really, really well. You look at the likes of Petrov, they've signed a couple of New Zealand defenders who are very handy on the ball, very solid, experienced campaigners. Goodwin as well. And also another fella, I think maybe from one of the state league sides that were very close to Werribee. It might be Sydenham or out in the West. I know that's not too close to
Potentially
Werribee.
Hoppers, Crossing, or Altona City, one of those two.
So they look good in pre-season. They did defeat Hume City a couple of weeks ago in pre-season as Blumenthal drags his shot wide.
Well, the thing with pre-season is you can really never know. I mean, I happened to be at a game just ahead of last season where South Melbourne played Guangzhou RNF, a Chinese Super League team, and South Melbourne blitzed them, gave them a real tough hammering that night, 3-0, and you would have thought that South Melbourne, despite the loss of Chris Taylor, wouldn't have been too affected by it. But as we saw, they really did struggle at the wrong end of the ladder last season. We saw them get knocked out from the FA Cup up at ABD Stadium by Hume City in a game that saw Nick Hegarty actually get sent off, didn't he?
Yeah, so that is correct. As we move towards the final 10 minutes, it's going to be a substitution. Alan Blumgart will make way for Arjun Mehmedi.
We do have a comment coming in from Tito Perez in the comment section saying, Hume City looking pretty good, or is Dandenong Thunder pretty bad? What would your assessment of that be, Chris?
Well, I really thought that this season Hume City would be much stronger defensively with Wilson. I sort of expected Tennant to play there, and surprisingly it's been Danny Dixon who's done a good job at centre-back. But those two midfield screeners, they're in the Jack Petrie type mould of Heidelberg, Ben Bowler and Harry Monaghan. They'll get stuck in. They don't mind a pretty solid challenge. They sort of live for that old, sort of British sort of football. And we've seen with Hewitt tonight playing in front of them, his distribution's been excellent, his set pieces. I expected Hume City to improve on last year, but as we've seen, there's with quite a few injuries for the Dandenong Thunder and quite a few youngsters getting an opportunity, and you've got to admit it is a bit of a disjointed sort of back line too for the Dandenong Thunder, and they really didn't cope with things early, giving up those 2 early goals. So soon we'll look towards round 2 and get predictions on that, but at the moment the Thunder have the corner. Carvalho, great delivery. Mehmedi, free header, puts it wide.
Free header was coming at him quite fast. That's the one thing you can say in Mehmedi's defence. But interesting you mentioned Hume City. You expect them to be a lot more defensively solid coming into the season. I actually would have thought the opposite was true given the loss of Blair Govan, who's gone to Oakley, who had a terrific 2 years at Hume City despite their mediocrity, you could say. Was definitely established himself as one of the best defenders outside the top 6. But if you look at the performance tonight, they haven't looked like that they've missed him at all, given that the job that Wilson has done on Barnes as well as Monaghan.
Well, watching him pre-season, I did have the prediction that Paul Wilson, he's a bit younger, but I really see him as that Ross Archibald type centre-back, good distribution from the back. He's going to be a very, very good signing. Hume City jumped on him very early. I believe he was their first signing of the window. So they're going to be tested next week as Blair Govan comes back to ABD Stadium to play for his Oakley side, which lost against the Melbourne Knights on Friday night.
Yeah, and we've spent a large portion of tonight's game, talking about, harking back onto the fact that Dandenong Thunder experienced a similarly slow start last year with a heavy home defeat to kickstart the season. But it's interesting, the tide seemingly turned when they visited Kingston City in round 5 and end up coming away with a hard-fought 1-0 victory. And from there onwards, they were able to get a lot of confidence and momentum. I believe in the following weeks, they beat the likes of Port Melbourne and Bulleen at home. So they were definitely able to get some ascendancy from that result. It's interesting, they've got Kingston away next week, Monday night, of course, at the Grange. It generally draws a big crowd given the close proximity of the two sides, and I think it'll be no different next week. Kingston generally, particularly start off the season quite strongly when it comes to crowds at home. Obviously the warmer weather does help, return of NPL football, but given that it's a local derby against the Thunder, and there's no love lost between those two, given the fact that in NPL 2 they had a monumental really promotion chase in 2016 between the two that ultimately saw a large group of Dandenong Thunder fans congregate in the middle following their final round clash against Springvale White Eagles, eagerly awaiting to see Brunswick finish the job off against Kingston City and win 1-0, only to be disappointed when Damien Iconis popped up in the 96th minute and equalised for Kingston City to send them up instead.
That's it. They were the big beneficiary of the second half of the season where the Thunder slipped down with a few injuries, and Nick Tolios' side have, in their 2 years, this is the third year into the top flight, back into the top flight, that they've been building quite strongly. They are a side that can be quite tough to beat, particularly at home. And they grinded out a 0-0 draw this afternoon with Port Melbourne, who made the finals last year. So we'll sort of look to next weekend. So the Melbourne Knights take on Altona Magic. Summer Street, the first Friday night game of the year. They always start it a little bit earlier. It's 7:45 kickoff. And two sides that are very close to each other, and they had some great battles in the past.
Yeah, it's smart fixturing and scheduling by Melbourne Knights to have their game kick off at 7:45, because if I may be critical here, I think one of the problems or one of the things to really improve on when it comes to scheduling of NPL games is that those Friday and Monday night games could be better fixtured, maybe at 7:30, 7:45, even an 8 o'clock time slot, because the last thing you want to do is be travelling across the other side of the city on a Monday or a Friday night with a game that ends at 8:30, particularly on a Monday night where you've got work the next day. You don't tend to get home before 11:30 if you're lucky.
And when I get up on a Saturday morning at 5 o'clock to go to work, I'd much rather the early Friday night game. And speaking of Parve Yusuf, the president at the Melbourne Knights, that's something he's tried to do, bring the fans back, getting those earlier times, make it a little bit easier to go to the game. 7:45 is the earliest that they can kick off, just to make sure that the referees can get to the grounds on time.
And conversely, that's the other thing that you can say about Friday nights, is that particularly if you're travelling across town, it can be quite difficult to get there for a 7:30 kickoff. And I know it's a problem that, for example, 20s players have had with 6:30 kickoffs. I remember a ridiculous situation a few years ago where North Geelong commenced their campaign against the Bentley Greens at Kingston Heath Soccer Complex, and their 20s had to basically kick off at 6:15. So if you're travelling from Geelong, you would have had to definitely have left work, maybe even school early to get to that game.
As we look forward to next weekend, as well, as we've said, we've been through Hume City, Oakley, Melbourne Knights, Altona, Pascoe Vale versus the Bentley Greens on a Friday night. They've had quite a few fiery clashes in the past. I do believe Hakeem Al-Arabi won't be playing.
Yeah, and that's understandable.
He's going to probably March. He'll start playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable, obviously, with Al-Arabi, the situation, the predicament he's been through over off-season. I think he'll just be relieved to be back home with his wife and also get back to training. I think he'll start training this coming week and hopefully see him, potentially March, but even if it does take him longer to get back into the swing of things, obviously it's been a traumatic off-season for him, and unlike any other that we've probably seen in not just NPL Victorian football, but also in Australian football.
As we stay with Carvello, just too much on it. Skipetis won't get there. And also South Melbourne, Dandenong City. once again, FFA Cup.
A rematch of that famous FA Cup encounter from 2017, where Dandenong City were 4-1 up with a little over under 20 minutes remaining, and South Melbourne mounted an incredible comeback to get through 5-4. Made, of course, national headlines that game. Of course, it was the start of something special for South Melbourne, who culminated their FA Cup campaign that season with a semi-final clash against Sydney FC at Lakeside Stadium. So it'll be an interesting fixture. Both teams, of course, started appalling. I was quite disappointed with Dandenong City last night. They did get themselves back into the contest with a Dean Piemonte goal, but as soon as that happened, Luke Pilkington did get himself sent off after a scrap with Brandon Lundy. As we see the fourth official indicate there'll be 3 minutes of time added on. I mean, it's one of those situations where you would forgive referee Perry Muir if he just blew the whistle straight away, given that there's so little to play for.
That's it. Since they got to 4-0, the game sort of petered out, so we've definitely digressed. Ball in. Carvalho away. Also, we move into the Saturday fixtures. Green Gully and Heidelberg at Green Gully. We've had some excellent fixtures there in the past. The Heidelberg comeback of a few years ago.
Yeah, and that involved, from memory, a fantastic goal from Ruben Way, who, of course, finds himself back at Heidelberg United after a short stint with the Wellington Phoenix in the A-League. One thing I will also have to say as we tether towards the end of this game is thank you to you guys, our viewers, for sticking with us. I know it hasn't perhaps been the most thrilling of encounters. It's been quite one-sided. I mean, the game was virtually over at halftime, if not then shortly after the halftime break. But thank you for tuning in with us, and I'm sure that you will see more and more NPL action throughout the course of the season.
That's it. When you can go and watch your side play, and then you can sit back, with your phone or connect to the YouTube on your TV at home. You can watch some NPL football. Hopefully, we can bring you more and more games. And just we've been through Kingston City, Dandenong Thunder. We were talking about that earlier. The last sort of game is Avondale and Port Melbourne, and it was Avondale who knocked out Port Melbourne with a final at Avengers Park. And Port Melbourne have recruited well. They've got the Englishman Sam Ford.
Look, I think Piddick overachieved with the Sharks last year. So, again, if he can get them a mid-table, maybe even a finals position, he's doing quite well. I mean, he's probably one of the best young coaches in this league. Of course, him, Kokari, Hegarty, Tolios, they're all coaches in their 30s making a name for themselves. And another thing I'd like to say to our viewers tonight, if you want to catch up on the highlights of all the games that have been played across this week, go to Vimeo. For those of you that aren't familiar with that platform, it's Vimeo, and type in NPL Victoria 2019. You'll get highlights from the games over the course of this week, as well as full half replays.
That's the best way to catch up on the first round of the NPL season. As we're almost here at full time, Michael Weir will take his time over this goal kick. It's been an excellent performance from the men in white, Hume City, to start the season with a 4-0 away win at Dandenong Thunder. Michael Weir, while he's had 3 or 4 big saves he's had to make in this game, and he's come up trumps in all of them.
Yeah, and not just that, they've all come at important times at this game. Of course, the key one is that one that happened in the opening few minutes when the score was 0-0, and it really set Hume City on their way. One player that I've been tremendously impressed with is a former work colleague of mine, Danny Dixon, who has played in such an unfamiliar role at the centre of defence. With more accustomed to have seen him play out wide on the wings as a wide midfielder, but he's been superb at the centre of Hume's defence. As Kapetis gets a chance.
Oh, and he fires it into the trees.
Yeah,
Flash past Weir at the near post. It wasn't too far away, but that was a big chance for Skapetis to get a consolation goal for the Thunder.
Just sums up Thunder's night in front of goals that is close, but yet so far away. I mean, 4-0. Probably some might say that it doesn't paint an accurate representation of the game, given that Thunder have had a good chance themselves, but at the same time, they've been so poor in defence that if you are that poor, if you are that open, you're essentially going to get punished by a team that's on form, and Hume City have been on song tonight.
We've just seen Peter Muir there just pretend that he was going to run over and kick the ball off the pitch. He started up a jog and looked at Hendon, and then Hendon decided to do the right thing and get the ball off the pitch before the referee. And the full-time whistle blows here at Dackland Stadium. Formerly George Andrews Reserve. It is Hume City with a big away win. It is Dandenong Thunder 0, Hume City 4. It was Mitch Cooper with 2 goals early in this game in the 11th and 14th minute that really put the Thunder on the back foot and really made a mess of their sort of makeshift defence. James Brown in the 26th minute at the back post with a great finish, and Brown, who capitalised on the mistake from Kisheri, fired it into the roof of the net to give Hume City a 4-0 lead after 52 minutes, and the game sort of petered out from then, but Hume City well on top and a great start to their season. Yeah,
I'm sure James Brown is feeling good after that double tonight, as is Mitch Cooper, the former A-League duo. Get their season and get Hume's season off to a great start. But outside of them two, you have to commend the whole team for a fantastic team performance. You know, whether it was their new imports, Hewitt and Bowler, who had great games, or even guys that we've seen returning, Dixon, who was fantastic at the heart of defence, Hendon, Monaghan, I thought played well, Sweet had a fantastic game, Urson Kaya looked good in parts. So, look, plenty of positives if you're Nick Hegarty, but if you're Veton Kokari, it's a very disappointing game to bring in the new season. Of course, a lot of anticipation, a lot of hype given some of their off-season recruitment, but it just wasn't their night. And you'd be, if you're Dandenong Thunder, there'll be a lot of soul searching that does take place over the course of the week. I guess the good thing for them is that they've got a lot of time to recover, dwell on this result, and also spend some hard yards of training. At the same time, is a week, you know, a full 8-9 days, the best thing to do. Usually, sometimes footballers in this situation just want to get the next game. Get to that one as soon as possible to forget about this one. So we'll see how they bounce back against Kingston City next week. But Hume City have definitely commenced 2019 with a bang. Well, that's the way it ends here. Dandenong Thunder 0, Hume City 4. It's been a pleasure to bring you this live stream game from Dackland Stadium here in Dandenong. My name's Chris Gleeson. Thank you very much, Demir Kulas, for your contribution tonight. Thanks for having me, Chris, and thank you to you, audience, for keeping up with us, putting up with us over the course of the 90 or so minutes that we've enjoyed tonight, and hopefully see you more throughout the course of the season. Stay tuned for some movement over the course of next week regarding the coverage of games for the following season. For this season, that is. So, well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night, and a big thank you to Sportscast, who have provided you with this stream. It has been a little bit difficult in one of the corners, but the boys have done an excellent job here tonight, and we look forward to showing you more football in the future. Thank you and good night.